The iron doors loomed at the end of the corridor, their surface pitted and scarred, as if they had withstood 1,000 storms. The air was thick with the scent of metal and something else, something sharp like fear. I remember the first time I saw them, how the world seemed to narrow to a single point, the echo of my own heartbeat louder than the footsteps that marched me forward. Behind those doors, I was told, was a place where discipline was not a lesson but a law, a place where the rules were not just enforced, they were absolute. The doors opened with a groan that seemed to vibrate through my bones. I stepped inside, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with doors that looked just as heavy, just as final. At the far end, a man in a crisp uniform waited, his eyes cold and unreadable. He didn't speak as I approached, just nodded once, and I fell into line with the others. Boys and girls, some younger, some older, all with the same look of wary anticipation. We were led to a room where the walls were bare, the floor polished to a dull shine. The officer, his name was Captain Rourke, stood before us, his hands clasped behind his back. He spoke in a voice that brooked no argument, no hesitation. "You are here because you failed to follow the rules. Out there you had choices. In here you have none. You will obey or you will suffer the consequences." The first lesson came quickly. One of the boys, a tall kid with a shock of red hair, shifted his weight from foot to foot. Rourke's eyes snapped to him. "Did I say you could move?" The boy shook his head, stammering an apology. "Drop and give me 50, Rourke barked. The boy hesitated, and that was enough. 2 other officers appeared, their faces expressionless, and the boy was on the floor, struggling through push-ups as Rourke counted each one, his voice as steady as a metronome. That was just the beginning. Every moment was governed by rules. How we stood, how we spoke, how we ate, how we slept. Meals were silent affairs, each of us sitting at attention, our eyes fixed on our trays. If you finished too quickly, you waited. If you finished too slowly, you went hungry. The officers watched everything, their eyes missing nothing. A dropped fork, a whispered word, a glance in the wrong direction. Each mistake was met with swift, unyielding punishment. At night, the lights never went fully out. We lay in our bunks, the thin blankets pulled up to our chins, listening to the footsteps of the night patrol. Sleep was a luxury, granted only to those who had earned it. For the rest, the night was a series of drills, push-ups, sit-ups, running in place until your muscles screamed and your lungs burned. The officers called it reminding us of our place. We called it hell. Some days the punishments were worse. Solitary confinement was the one everyone feared. The cell was small, barely big enough to stand in, with a single flickering bulb overhead. The door closed with a finality that left you gasping. Hours passed, then days, with nothing but your own thoughts for company. Some people came out quieter, more obedient. Others came out broken. There were moments, though, when the mask slipped. I remember one night after a particularly brutal day, when I heard someone crying in the darkness. It was a soft, muffled sound, quickly stifled, but it was enough to remind me that we were all just kids, trapped in a place that demanded we become something else, something harder, colder, less human. The officers said it was for our own good. "Discipline builds character," Rourke would say, pacing the line as we stood at attention, sweat trickling down our faces. "Out there, the world doesn't care about your excuses. In here, you learn to survive." But it didn't feel like survival. It felt like surrender. We learned to move in silence, to anticipate every command, to keep our eyes down and our mouths shut. We learned to watch each other too, because sometimes the only way to avoid punishment was to make sure someone else took the fall. Friendships were rare and trust was dangerous. The iron doors didn't just keep us in, they kept the world out, and in that isolation, we became something else. There were therapy sessions once a week, where we sat in a circle and pretended to talk about our feelings. The therapist was kind, but her words felt hollow in the face of everything else. "Why are you here?" she would ask, and we would answer with the same rehearsed lines. Because I broke the rules. Because I need to learn discipline. But the truth was more complicated. We were here because someone, somewhere, had decided that we needed to be fixed. Some people changed. They stood straighter, spoke more clearly, followed every rule without question. They were the ones who left first, walking out through the iron doors with their heads held high. But even they carried something with them, a shadow, a memory, a scar that would never fully heal. Others didn't make it. They fought back, resisted, tried to hold on to who they were. For them, the punishments were harsher, the nights longer, the days more brutal. Some broke, some bent, some simply disappeared, their names whispered in the darkness as a warning to the rest of us. I remember the day I left. The doors opened, and the sunlight was blinding. I stepped outside, feeling the weight of the place still pressing down on me. I had survived, but I was not the same. None of us were. Behind those iron doors, discipline was not just a lesson, it was a weapon, wielded with precision and purpose. It was the scariest thing I had ever witnessed, and it would haunt me for the rest of my life.